Hey guys, it's Scott here, Vegas Horse Pools. I got my buddy Gary. We're going to talk a little bit about college football and the best four games this weekend. Gary, how'd this last weekend treat you?
Some wins, some losses. It was pretty typical for this time of year. The lines are a little bit sharper right this time of
Yep.
year, so you're going to have some of those where you feel good about one side, but schedule spots, etc., are going to get you. It was a pretty good weekend overall. It wasn't too bad. I had a an overall winning record as far as my personal bets and whatnot. But yeah, it's we're getting down the home stretch here. I'm feeling good about it. This is going to be absolutely chaotic when it gets to the playoff. I thought there was a scenario where you're just going to have a bunch of teams bundled up in one spot, and how do you determine between them who actually gets to go? That's what we're looking at. We got 2 more weeks left to try and figure this thing out.
Yeah, I can't believe there's only 2 weeks left in the season. This is my favorite sport to watch all year, and we're coming to the end. I'm
Oh yeah,
My weekend was horrible, based on the fact that Nebraska let me down again. Now I did
they
the
covered.
virtual game. Yeah, but that don't take you to a bowl game.
That's
They don't
true.
take you to a bowl game. I ran the virtual game last week in Nebraska, and I think they went to like 5 or 6 overtimes with USC and ended up getting beat by two. That should have told me all I needed to know, but my heart's still with Nebraska. I don't care who they
Well, yeah,
play. Now we got
of
a
course.
really tough game this weekend, and I want to. I was looking at Spank odds because, guys, we're recording this Sunday night because there's a scheduling conflict in the morning. The show's still going to come out at 8 o'clock, but we're doing the show a little bit early. I was just looking at Spank odds. Let me pull this up. I want to know if this shocks you or not, Gary, and hopefully you can give me some good news. I've made the font a little bit bigger on Spank odds based
Yes.
on some people that were watching the show said there's no point. Oh, we're getting a little bit of movement there at an offshore book on
I
the
see.
Indiana game. But before we get to Indiana, look at that. We're getting a little bit of movement in that game. But before we get there,
We are.
this is Nebraska's last home game of the year. They're going to try one more time to get bowl eligible. I've pretty much already given up on the Iowa game. I would love to be talked out of that, but I just don't know how they can possibly win that. But they are a favorite at home. They're setting it to minus 2.5 and the juice in their direction. Now, field should be worth about 3 in my world. What do you have the home field advantage for Nebraska at?
Home field advantage for Nebraska. Let's see. I didn't have that pulled up. I want to say it's like no. I think I've got them at 2.5.
You got them at two and
So
a half.
yeah, I
Okay.
think
So,
yeah,
so this game's a push then, a complete, utter push. Thank God they're in
yeah.
Lincoln. So, talk to me about this game. I'm really hoping Nebraska can beat these guys, become bowl eligible. But my head's not in this one. My heart is talking. So you tell me what your numbers look like.
Numbers look like I've got Nebraska by 0.65 points at home for the full season. Now, based on the last 4 weeks, I've got Wisconsin minus 1.19. So, Wisconsin favored by just a touch, just based on the last 4 weeks of stats. I This feels like a spot where Nebraska, I think it's not as much of a letdown to go to USC and lose. Wisconsin having the number one team just right up against the rails on Saturday
Yeah,
night and not being able to get that thing done. And I mean, it looked like they put a lot into that. And
right.
when they didn't get the win and the offense couldn't do anything, we found out this morning that, well, this afternoon, Phil Longo, the offensive coordinator for Wisconsin, has been fired. What does that mean for Wisconsin? Not totally sure, but also I don't think that this Wisconsin offense, no matter what they change, is going to be able to have a ton of success against this Nebraska defense. Tony White's defense is still good. Like it's
Hmm.
this is still a good defense. Wisconsin's defense is eh. They can defend the pass some. They're not very good against the run. I do think Nebraska is going to have some success there. 2.5 based on a letdown spot for Wisconsin. The game's at home. Nebraska, where this is like one final shot to get to a bowl game kind of thing. 2.5 feels about right. I'd kind of lean Nebraska, even though my numbers say not to. Kind of feel, I mean, this is the same thing where last week my numbers loved USC, but you and I both talked about it last week where this feels like a decent spot for Nebraska to keep it close. So we thought they would cover there. I kind of think Nebraska covers this 2.5. I think they get the win.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear you say that. What did you think about the new offensive coordinator at Nebraska playing on Saturday?
So, now I did not watch all of the game, but going back through the key plays and whatnot and actually watching it, at least I've watched all of the fourth quarter now that I'm thinking about it. It felt like they weren't exactly on the same page yet. But the good news is that they've had a week, under their belts where they are figuring each other out. They're understanding what's happening. It feels like it should be better this week. And you're not on the road, so it kind of makes things a little bit easier. I like Dana Holgorsen, and I think him with a really good quarterback is going to pay dividends eventually. So this feels like the perfect week to have something good happen. Yeah, I'm in on it.
That sounds really good. I'm reading a lot of the Nebraska news, and it sounds like the move to hire him as offensive coordinator was a forced move. Dylan was probably going to enter the transfer portal without that. So they had literally no choice. This transfer portal is changed the game completely. So again, I can't talk about this game. My heart, all I can do is tell you from my heart. I hope Nebraska goes to a bowl. We're the longest dry spell, I believe, in Division I without a bowl. I think we're number one.
I think it's in the P4, right? Because there's some like I think like Nebraska or New Mexico hasn't made it, like all this kind of stuff. So I think it's just in the P4 conferences.
Yeah, I know we're looking at like 7 years. It's just amazing.
2016, right?
Something like that. Yeah, I believe it was 16. Yeah, I think you're right. So let's just hope Nebraska can hang on, get a win, go to a bowl game, do some kind of great recruiting in the offseason, and let's hope next year starts the same way this year did and doesn't end the way this year did. So I think let's talk about a real game now. And you see how I didn't even say Nebraska was the one I was buried in the lead on. Let's talk about probably the most important game of the weekend. Game number 2 on our list, Indiana versus Ohio State. Now, I really like the Ohio State team, but Indiana really hasn't done anything wrong. And I'm not entirely sure the loser of this ballgame doesn't still get into the playoffs. Gary, what do your numbers show on this?
My numbers show that the line actually is pretty close to right. For the full season, I've got Ohio State by 4.5 points. But based on the last 4 weeks of stats, so the team that's been playing better as of late, I've got Ohio State by 18.5. So, I mean, you split the difference, and it's 11.5, 12. I see Pinnacle's got 10.5 there. I think that Ohio State just has significantly more talent. When you look at it, you're looking at number 3 in the 247 talent composite for Ohio State, and Indiana's number 57. So, Ohio State's number 1 in predicted points added margin. Indiana, I've got number 6. I mean, these are just 2 really good football teams. They don't run a lot of plays in the games. Ohio State's number 103 in offensive plays per game. Indiana's number 80. So there's not a ton of possessions, anything like that. I feel like Indiana could probably keep this thing within the 11.5, the 12, whatever it might be. But man, there is a world where they have not seen anything like this all season, right, and they're going into that environment. I mean, I'm probably going to stay away from it at this number right now, because I would like for Indiana to win. I would like for them to cover and all that, make it a fun game, just so that we can see what the chaos would be like. I mean, if they were to win this and Ohio State has 2 losses, do we give does Ohio State get into the playoff if they have 2 losses? Like, they've got a big win over Penn State, but who is Penn State beat? right?
Yeah, you're right. You get into a problem. It's going to be better for the Big Ten to have Indiana, I believe, get beat here and get them both in.
Yeah.
But you just never know. I've seen people talking about 5 SEC teams. Well, if you get 5
Oh
SEC
yeah.
teams in the playoff, you're going to be squeezing one of the Big Ten guys out. And I'm Big Ten, so I don't want to see that either. But yeah, I'm going to be cheering for Indiana, but I don't think they're going to win this game. I would really like to see this game if it was at Indiana. I think
Yeah.
that would be a lot of fun. Being at Ohio State, I think Ohio State wins this. I'm exactly like you. The only advantage we really have over the books is we don't have to bet every game, and there's almost zero chance. There's the same chance I bet this game as I bet the Nebraska game, and it's virtually zero.
That does make sense. Look, Indiana is number 106 in current strength of schedule. The thing that might let them maybe backdoor this thing or something like that. Don't forget, Ohio State has lost 3 straight to Michigan, and they will have Michigan the following week
Right.
at home, same place. So this is, a potential look ahead spot, but I don't know how you have a look ahead when the number 5 team in the country is coming to your house.
No, I understand what you're saying. Emotionally, it might be a look ahead, but I don't think they're looking past Indiana at this point. Let's talk about one of the service schools now. One of the Army going to Notre Dame. This spread's a little bit higher than I thought it was going to be. What do your numbers show on this game?
My numbers on this have Notre Dame by 13.89. And,
Okay.
Based on the last 4 weeks, it's actually got Army favored here. But this is, it sets up almost the exact same as the Notre Dame Navy game that we saw, right? Where it's just, now granted, Navy's quarterback got hurt in that one. Looks like Bryson Daly is perfectly fine right now. He didn't quite look like himself against North Texas last week, but, all of these numbers for Army, I don't know if there's a way to properly rate it because they've got the number 133 current strength of schedule in the country. That is next to last. Like it is the second easiest schedule in the entire country. I think Liberty's got the first. And yeah, they're incredibly efficient. They're number 28 in SP plus special teams efficiency right now. Notre Dame is number 96 in that. But when you start looking at team talent, et cetera, Notre Dame is just drastically better across the board at every position. And if they really want to blow this team out, then they can. And this feels like the kind of spot where last week, against Virginia, they just kind of moseyed through. They got up 35-0. They let Virginia score a couple of touchdowns late, and it just was what it was. This week, huge spot. And people are talking about Notre Dame not having any real great wins, all that kind of stuff, because since they beat Navy now has 3 losses, and that win doesn't look as good. If Notre Dame wants to get in, maybe they feel like they need some style points here. So I would not be against betting Notre Dame at 16.5, but I see it coming down. Tell me your thoughts on this. Like, I know you thought it was a little bit high, but man, like that team is way more talented than Army.
Oh, and I'm not arguing any of that. I think Notre Dame's going to win this, but this number looks too high to me. I'm going to have a hard time betting this one, but I got to tell you, I don't think the playoff committee is going to have any problem getting them in because Notre Dame is such a big name. I think if they can win this ball game by 1, the committee's not going to hold anything against them. I think the committee is going to have to search long and hard to find a reason to keep Notre Dame out. I think the scale is definitely tilted to their side. I think with a 1-point victory, they're fine.
Maybe so. I'm just you get a little curious when Notre Dame has got maybe their best win is Texas A&M early in the year for a first-year head coach, and with a quarterback that's not even playing anymore, and they've got a loss at home to Northern Illinois, who's got 4 losses right now in the MAC. So it's not exactly ideal. But yeah, maybe they want to get some style points. Maybe Army starts to press a little bit, and maybe they turn the ball over. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that they could cover this number. Man, I would not want to touch this thing right now. If this thing gets to like 13.5, then yeah, I'll put some on Notre Dame. But as it sits right now, it's like, yeah, that thing could be backdoored so easily.
Oh, I 100% agree with that. I just think the playoffs were built for money. They weren't built for the best team to get in. I think Notre Dame gets in as long as they don't do something stupid like lose this game. I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening, but they could very well win this by 3-4 points, and I don't think the committee will hold it against them at all. And I do
You might be right.
I agree with the points you made about their loss before, but I think the committee will find a way to work around it. I really do. Well, it'll be interesting to see.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
And here's another very interesting game, and people are probably going to be surprised we're going to talk about this. This is the only reason I've come to believe that I'm okay with these super conferences. This is a bowl game. This isn't a conference game. Alabama going to Norman, Oklahoma to play the Sooners. I can't wait to see this game. I know the spread is a little bit high. I've just, I followed Oklahoma my entire life because of the rivalry with Nebraska. What does your numbers look like on this?
My numbers are showing that this is a little bit short. It opened 13.5. You see, it's already going up to 14 at most of these places. Yeah. I've got Bama by 17.12. And based on the last 4 weeks, I've got Bama by almost 26 points. Now, here's the thing that these metrics can't measure is, okay, now everybody's back on the Alabama, bandwagon again. There's a lot of pressure here. You got to win out in order to get to Atlanta for the SEC championship game. Oklahoma at home, last home game of the year. They need a win to go bowling, and they can either get it this week against Alabama or they can get it next week on the road at LSU. How much fight is there, and can this defense for Oklahoma, that I've got number 14 in defensive predicted points added allowed per drive, basically the number 14 most efficient defense in the country in Oklahoma, can they get home against Jalen Milroe and that Alabama offense? Oklahoma is number 28 in havoc rate. Bama is number 39 in havoc allowed. There's some things there about that Oklahoma defensive line and that front seven that maybe they can make things uncomfortable for Jalen Milroe. If that happens, maybe you get some interceptions. Maybe you get, some not great decisions. If that happens, this thing could end up being really, really close. But man, I look at this and it feels like Bama should be favored by more, and that's certainly the direction that it's going.
Yeah,
I would not want to touch it. But this one on the road at night, first time going to Norman. Oklahoma's going to be fired up for this. They need this one. Yeah, this is a terrifying spot for Alabama.
I agree with you, but this is the only one of the 4 games that I'm willing to play, and I'll take Bama on the road. Bama needs the style points. The SEC is insane right now. They need the style points here. Oklahoma's had a pretty tough year. Oklahoma, I've like I said, I've enjoyed watching Oklahoma my entire life, but this is not your traditional Oklahoma team. I think Alabama's going to be able to do whatever the heck they decide to do. And given the fact they need the style points, this is the opposite of what I just told you about Notre Dame. Alabama is going to need something pretty to have happen here, especially so close to the end. Where Notre Dame, I don't think needs this at all, but Alabama definitely does. And I think they take care of business. I think this is going to be a really big win for Alabama.
I could see it. I mean, Alabama's defense has played really well, and that Oklahoma offense is just the numbers have not been good. They do have their guys back healthy right now, but even healthy, that offensive line has not exactly gelled for Oklahoma this year. And Jackson Arnold just has not looked like it, So that's I could see where you're going with this. But boy, I mean that's a tough spot. Norman at night, and they need this one for a bowl game. That's a tough spot.
I 100% hear what you're saying, and I agree with you. I just think Alabama still overcomes. And, I'm not a big Alabama fan. I'm a Georgia fan. I'm not an Alabama fan. So I think
Absolutely.
I'm okay on this one. I think Georgia pulling off that win against Tennessee was beautiful. I think they've
Oh, yes.
yeah, I don't know how you leave them. I don't know how you leave them out of the playoffs now. But I also said the same thing to you last year. How do you leave Georgia out of the playoffs last year? I couldn't do it last year either. And somehow they figured out a way to do it. So,
That's true.
well,
That's
well,
true.
it looks like that's our 4 games for the week. Should be a really fun weekend. Gary, how do we reach you? Can you give us your Twitter handle?
Of course. Of course. At Gary WCE on X. That is the easiest way to find all the different things that I'm involved with. But the BetUS College Football Show every Tuesday and Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We have a good time with that. We're getting ready for bowl season as well. We're going to hit on every single bowl game, every playoff game, all of it. We are going to we're doing a full breakdown on every single bowl game. So that should be a lot of fun. It's going to be a good time, basically all the way through January 20th. So yeah, we're still keeping this thing rolling. And then of course we will have our off-season content as well, getting ready for futures plays, etc. But make sure to check it out with the BetUS College Football Show. And then of course, Winning Cures Everything. You can check out my personal podcast, winningcureseverything.com.
That sounds really good. I always enjoy watching those. Well, I know it's early Sunday night. My buddy Adam Bjorn on my Saturday circuit contest show, has still not been wrong on any of his NFL picks. He's got the anti Ohio prop going today. It's going against Cincinnati and going against Cleveland. Cleveland got buried alive this morning.
Oh,
so we're waiting for, and I haven't seen the score. I should probably look at the score, but I don't have it up. Maybe we can pull it up here in a second. But I highly encourage you guys to watch that circuit contest show. Adam gives us the inside information on Prime, not only in Ohio, but in New Jersey. And we're hearing that he's going to be having another book here west. I'm trying to talk him into making it in Nevada. Doesn't look like I'm pulling that off, but he looks like he's going to be opening another book out here. So that's good for everybody. Of course, everybody should be using Spank Odds. Spank Odds is free for everybody to use. You have any questions about it, you can go to spankodds.com. You can send me a message. I'm at Spank Odds. If you want to talk to me, I'm at Vegas Horse Pools. It was good talking to you guys this week. Gary, another great show. I appreciate all your time. I think that's it for us today.